Anthony Ferraro, Dan Mancina. Two blind guys collide to bring you Four Bad Eyes Podcast.
Welcome back. Four bad eyes. Actually,
six
bad eyes across the board today. We have a very special guest.
I guarantee
you've heard him before.
Heard his voice.
Actually, you've heard him if you just started this podcast.
That's right.
The beautiful intro and outro, Mr. Pete Gustin.
What's up, guys? Six bad eyes.
There he is. Oh,
amazing.
Man. It is such a pleasure to have you on today, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, man. I hope you like our studio.
It's familiar.
Beautiful.
Pete was gracious enough to let us come into his home, record, hang out, skate, everything.
Get to meet the voice behind it all.
Dogs, family.
And you haven't heard him from just Four Bad Eyes intro.
No.
That's for sure.
He's
special guest Superdog.
That's Superdog.
Yeah, that's Superdog.
Superdog
Yeah,
making appearances.
He needs a shout out.
Yeah, he does. You're gonna hear him. It's all right. So Pete, how's it going?
Pretty damn good. I've been having a good day. Good to visit with you guys. Never met Dan before.
Yeah,
it was fun to hear him skate today.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm told visually it was astonishing.
Cool.
Auditorially, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
nice.
It's always trying to describe it's crazy.
Kelly was giving a running play-by-play.
We went to a little. Actually, let's give a brief intro for Pete.
So Pete's also, just to give you some background, Pete's also blind. Mm-hmm. And Pete, why don't you tell us your eye condition and a little bit about you real quick?
My eye condition, I have such a interesting diagnosis because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I have Stargardt's disease because I have Stargardt's disease. But when I was diagnosed, it wasn't even known as that. I was diagnosed with macular degeneration,
mm-hmm.
and they reclassified it when I got older because of the very specific version that I have. And so I have dry. Non-age-related ABCA4 caused Stargardt's disease, which seems to present differently in a ton of people. Like, I was on Instagram the other day and another woman with Stargardt's was like, oh, I need light. I need a ton of light. Mm-hmm. And I still have light perception at this point in my life, like light and dark, but the light gives me a massive headache, like massive headaches, which is why I always I'm tapping the sunglasses on the top of my head. I always have sunglasses with me because I don't want to get that light headache. So I feel like Stargardt's needs to get even like more further classified, because there are people that even tell me, like, oh, I have Stargardt's disease and I still drive a car. I'm like, I can't even see a car. I can't even find a car in a driveway. How can we have the same disease? But yeah, so I guess I just got really, really advanced Stargardt's disease.
Yeah.
Well, is Stargardt's, is it degenerative for everyone that has it?
I don't feel like I know enough about it, and I'm not sure that the doctors know enough.
It's a degenerative.
It is degenerative, but I don't think it has the doctors can't put like a
there's not a universal.
Right. They can't say by 30 you'll see this, by 40 you'll see that. And then they believe that I was born with it. They think that possibly I came out of the womb and immediately started degenerating. Mm-hmm. And it presented by the time I was 8 years old. That's when I started going to my parents and like, I can't see the chalkboard like my friends can. And, you know, of course, it was still the 80s and science was crappy, and they didn't really we couldn't Google anything. There was no Google back then. So we just went to the local eye doctor, and he's like, you need glasses. So they gave me glasses, and I literally wore those for 6 months. And
these aren't helping.
Yeah, I'm like, these don't do anything.
Start hiding them.
Yeah, totally. I was like, I don't know why I'm wearing these. They don't do anything. So we had to continue going to different specialists until they finally diagnosed me at the time with macular degeneration. But we got diagnosed by a research doctor, which is the worst doctor to get diagnosed by because he has no bedside manner. He's just a researcher. And so after a day of study at the Massachusetts Eye and Ear Institute, he came out of his office and he's like, we figured it out. You have macular degeneration. I'm going to write a pamphlet on it. And they sent us they'd sent us, or write a paper. He's going to write a paper on it. Yeah. And so I'm in one of the medical papers as one of the earliest diagnoses of macular degeneration.
I was just going to say,
lab rat.
This was in the 80s, right? You were saying?
It was 1985.
So there was no research really done yet.
No, and there was really no history of kids getting diagnosed with macular. It was usually something that happened to grandma or grandpa.
In the elderly, exactly.
Yeah.
Commonly referred to as juvenile form of macular degeneration.
Right.
I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah, exactly. But back then it was just macular degeneration.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, the guy, he wanted to give us no information. He told my mother, like, chased him into his office, and he's like, I can't tell you, you're going to have to read the paper. He's like, I can't tell you, like, as if we were going to plagiarize what he was going to tell us.
Yeah, he's like, I got some juicy stuff here. I can't let this leak.
He was totally, to him, like an 8-year-old presenting with macular degeneration, he's like, I'm going to put this out into the research community, and it's going to be amazing attention for me.
Right.
So we got no information. Like I said, there was no Google. So we went home, and we were just like, so we've got a name for it. We didn't even know it was degenerative. We didn't know that much.
You didn't know if your eyes were going to stay where they were or anything.
I had no idea what to expect. And then, so I can fast forward, we can jump all over the place if you want, but fast forward to age 17, they told me when I was 17, they're like, this is it. This is as bad as it's going to get. And it was bad. Like, I couldn't get my driver's license. I couldn't read text books in school anymore. I was doing books on tape and stuff. So it was bad, but it got so much worse, like so much worse. I mean, they told me at 17, they're like, you're done. And then they told me again at 27, they're like, well, this is definitely as bad as it gets. And they were
They still just didn't know.
They had no idea.
No idea.
No clue.
Now there's a lot of research and stuff done on Mac Degen and stuff.
I think so.
It's your central vision, right?
Yeah.
That goes. So you're supposed to keep your peripheral.
That's what they say. I don't know what to believe anymore, because I was told that I'd always be able to maintain my own mobility, and I can't. I can no longer walk down the sidewalk on my own. I need to start working like you guys, getting better with the cane. But basically, I just hold on to my fiance, Banana, for dear life.
Have you ever been with a low vision specialist?
I will. For a while, I was going to different ones in the 80s and 90s, and you can imagine the contraptions they were giving me back then. Just like these massive computers that had cameras that with zooming capability and stuff. And they're like, if you put your book under this and focus this camera over it and slide it around, you might be able to see some of the words on it. I'm like, that is not helpful.
But they never introduced any techniques of like scanning and stuff like that?
No, I ended up, because there was so little information and such bad misinformation that I kept getting throughout my life, I've almost steered clear of the low vision community for a long time. It wasn't really a choice of mine. I think my parents were like, no. They kept me in regular school. I did not go to any training, which I guess at the time when I was younger, I didn't need it. It would have been a much better life skill later on. Yeah. But fortunately, as I got older and as my condition got worse, the technology was getting better. Like, iPhones are amazing. They're a lifesaver. Text to speech allows me not just to make stupid TikTok videos, but to do my whole career as a voice actor. Like, I can't read any of the copy that I get. I get 50 to 100 scripts a day. And when I was starting to do voiceovers, when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, I used to take a magnifying glass into the audition room with me, and I would hold the magnifier over each like letter in each word. I'm like, THIS, this.
Oh man, I remember doing that.
Yeah, and it would take forever. And so I'd get to the audition as early as I could, ask for the script early, and then I'd start to memorize it. And I was embarrassed to let the directors and auditioners know that I had bad vision. So I would go in there and hold the script in front of me as if I was reading it.
You were reading, and act like you had it memorized.
I had it memorized, yeah.
It's crazy those extra things you do just to present yourself as not having a sight impairment,
I spent so much of my 20s and 30s, and I'm sorry to you guys in the audience, but my dog is having a fit. And,
that's fine.
He's a special guest.
Yeah. And here's your dog.
Oh, hi, Delta.
In my 20s and 30s, I spent so much energy trying to pretend that I wasn't visually impaired that, like, when I was like going on dates and I was in my 20s, I'd ask the girl, like, what restaurant do you want to go to? And I'd get to the restaurant like the day before or however I could ahead of time and memorize the menu. And so this is before like all the menus were online. I would literally go to restaurants and like say, hey, can I get a table? And they'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, can I take a look at the menu? And they'd be like, yeah, sure. And then I'd like run out the door with the menu.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I would like steal the menu and then I'd bring it home.
That's a move.
Yeah. And then I'd like either have my roommate in college read it to me or like I'd scan it into a computer and blow it up.
You would go that far.
Yeah. And then, I'd memorize where the bathroom is, I'd have them show me like, where's the bathroom? Cause I didn't want to have my like date, like take me to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like I was a master. Like even when I met Maggie, my now fiance, she's like, you hit it so well. She's like, I had no idea how bad your eyesight was.
Wow.
Cause I like planned ahead. Just kind of knew every step before I took it.
People would show you pictures on a phone. You'd be like, "Oh yeah, that looks really good."
Yeah. She was doing that. She's like, "This is my sister. People say we look alike." I'm like, "Yeah, you guys totally look alike."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
Because I grew up completely outside of the vision loss community. Like I said, so when I was diagnosed, this is a tiny bit of backstory. I didn't have any brothers or sisters, but I was very close to my two cousins. Now they were about 8 and 9 years older than me. So the year before I got diagnosed, my oldest cousin got into Harvard. Then the next year, as I got diagnosed, his brother, my other cousin, got into MIT. Mm-hmm. And so part of my diagnosis was
wicked smart.
Some wicked smart Boston kids. They told me like, well, you're not going to be able to go to a regular school. And like, they were basically like my brothers to me. And I think my mother was kind of like, screw that. Like my sister's kids are going to Harvard and MIT and you're going to send my kid to,
nowhere.
Yeah. And I think it was part of her attitude. Like, no, we're going to do what everybody else does. You're going to be able to follow that path. And that's why I was never part of the low vision community. I was in regular schools and faking everybody out at every turn to just not let them know what I was dealing with.
Wow. So going to school, you were using all of these, I guess, so you couldn't read your print books in school or anything?
Did you try to fake that?
Did they have any accommodations back then for you?
So my mother took a job at my high school and like relentlessly stayed on the teachers. The hardest thing that was for me was the fact that the teachers would write so much on the chalkboard.
Yeah, the chalkboard.
And my mother would be like, when you're writing on the chalkboard, say out loud what you're writing so that way my son can hear it. And a lot of the teachers were pretty bad with it. And then I'd be like, Mom, and I didn't even know this is stuff I learned like years later.
Yeah.
And she's like, how's it going in school? I'm like, all right. I'm like, history was a little tough today. Mr. Walsh wrote on the chalkboard a lot. And I wasn't like trying to tattle. I was just telling her about my day.
Yeah. And then
like the next day she'd go and like, Mr. Walsh, you didn't talk out loud when you were writing that chalkboard. Like I had no idea. And like years later, I went back to the high school. They're like, your mother yelled at us like every day.
It's crazy like hearing you talk about this because I find in a lot of successful blind people that their mom was like a real fierce like force in their life to like get the right accommodations and make sure they were getting the right things at a young age.
Yeah. I mean, she
Dan,
did.
you talked about it too. Your mom was like that.
Big pushing for getting me all my services and stuff. I was older though. She pushed hard for me to just start getting services and pushed me just as much as she pushed other people. So yeah.
What was school like high school? Like, were you trying to hide? Yeah, like
no, I didn't have any issues.
No,
I
sorry,
was driving.
Pete. Sorry, Pete. When you're in high school, like, were you trying to hide your blindness? Were you trying because you had to read the books on tape and stuff?
Yeah, all my friends knew. I think the toughest year for me, I was a big overcompensator.
I did the same stuff.
Yeah, like if my friends were going to do something good, I'd be like, well, I can do it better. I was on the football team, and at my size, 5'9", 170, like I should have played like running back or safety or something like that.
You did play sports. This is my next question.
Yeah, mine too.
So, but I couldn't see the ball, obviously, at that point in my life. But I did decide, I'm like, well, I can see a person, especially if they're wearing a different shirt. So I wanted to play offensive line. Like as an offensive lineman, the only thing you have to see is the big fat kid in front of you. You got to hit him. So
how big were you again?
I was 5'9", 170. So before the podcast, we were talking about my leg strength.
That's where it comes from?
Some people have seen some of my videos where my quads are showing, so that's where it came from. So in high school, they're like, you can't play offensive line. You're not big enough. You're not big at all. So I went crazy at the gym and started squatting. If anybody out there pays any attention to weightlifting, I was squatting 495 pounds.
Holy shit.
4 sets. Like for number
Yeah.
like
Not just like a max
yeah,
rep.
no, I would do like 3 sets of 6 at 495.
And weighing 170?
I got to 172. And so, and I was, I was 17 years old, and I was like all thigh. Like I was just they called me Quadzilla in high school.
Quadzilla!
So that was one of my overcompensations. Like all my friends were playing football. I wanted to play. I couldn't see the ball. What am I going to do? I'm going to become a maniac at the gym. And so I started my senior year of football. I started as an offensive lineman because these 230-pound kids would line up against me. They're 6'3", 230.
Yeah.
I'm 5'9", 170, but I could squat them with one leg. So I'd get into their waist and just blow these guys off the ball.
Will they look at you and start
like,
shit talking you at first?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Hey,
They're like, what's up, little dude? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm just like running down the field with them. And they're like, what is going on? Like, why is this little guy driving me so hard?
And then they find out you're blind, too.
Yeah. Well, my coaches didn't even. So at the end of my senior year, there was actually an award given in the county that I was playing in. They were giving an award for like the disabled athlete of the year. And some guy that was a deaf offensive lineman won. Which is cool. Like, that's great. That's great that he did that. But I found out later on that my coaches didn't even like put my name in. They didn't.
Really?
They probably didn't even know.
No, they knew. They totally knew. But it was like my whole school was like, it was like a don't ask, don't tell. Like don't bring it up. Don't
That's
tell
kind
anybody.
of how it
that
was
he's
with
lying.
my friends growing up. Like, they even listen to this podcast and they're like, dude, I never heard you talk about all these things. I never even knew. And I'm like, yeah, I'd never really opened up about a lot, but I never got the opportunities either, And you don't really, it's kind of like other people. Like you said, it's don't ask, don't tell. They're like afraid to talk about it.
I had a couple friends. So when I'd go out like on a double date or something, like my best friend at the time, Jay, we'd go to the restaurant and he'd be like, what up, Sawyer? That's his last name. We'd get to the restaurant and he'd be like, oh, you like ribs? He's, like casually.
Oh, what a homie, dude.
Yeah. He's like, why don't you get the ribs? I'm like, oh, that's great. Or he's like, oh, they got like a rockin' cheeseburger. Grab that. I'm like, cool, I'll get the rockin' cheeseburger.
Man,
and he totally, so I didn't have to like in front of the girl show that I wasn't able to read the menu. So I had a couple close friends that would help me slide by in instances like that. But yeah, most of the time it was like, don't bring it up, don't talk about it. And it wasn't that bad back then. It was really horrible. I remember when everybody was getting their driver's license.
I was going to say.
I remember that.
16 and a half. I remember it was childish. I was young at the time. And I remember on my 16th and a half birthday when I should have been getting my permit, I had this big like skull drawn on that day on the calendar. I used to keep an actual calendar on my room. And I was like so pissed about that day. Cause the other thing was my dad is a car dealer. And he,
no.
Yeah,
Could have had the pick of the litter.
To this day, he has a garage full of classic cars, race cars. Wow. He's a car collector. And he got it when I was like 13. He got a 1971 Chevy Chevelle Super Sport 454, which is this big badass race car. And it had an engine that you could hear from a million miles away. And he was like drag racing the thing when I was in high school. He used to take it to short tracks and do the quarter-mile drag. And he's like, when you can drive again, he was kind of hopeful.
Yeah.
He's like, this will be your car.
Did he ever let you drive when you were younger?
I was just gonna ask that.
Only when I was a little. So what we did for a joke, he was really into cars. You ever heard of a Ford Pinto?
Yeah,
I have heard of that.
It's a piece of crap. Like you could probably buy one now for like $200.
Beater.
Yeah.
He took a Pinto and took out the engine and threw in a 454 engine. And in order to fit this gigantic engine into this little car, he had to take out the firewall. So it was now the most dangerous vehicle on there. It was a death trap, totally. And we lived across the street from a field.
That's what Quadzilla would drive, though.
Totally.
Yeah.
But he let me, I was very little at the time, and he let me sit on his lap and drive the 454 Pinto around on the field.
Oh, man.
And there was one or two times when my friends let me get behind the wheel of their car in our town, in my neighborhood, on a straight road. And even to this day, I'm like, oh, I can't believe we did that. But, we were like 17-year-old kids.
It's the best.
It's just what you
feeling,
do.
Though.
But I didn't think I was stressed. I was like so stressed. I was like, I kind of wanted to do it because I kind of wanted to be cool, but I was also kind of like, oh my God, I don't want to crash this car.
Hey, if I crash, my dad's a car dealer. You'd be all right.
Yeah, right. I will announce that we're going to be hearing a fair amount of noise for a few minutes because the pizza has arrived.
Yeah, pizza's here, so the dog's going nuts. We got 3 dogs down there.
I have 2 questions from this era. they're kind of tied in. Number one, did you ever do morning announcements for your school? And I guess also to that point, was your voice always deep? What was your voice before puberty?
Yeah, my voice before puberty, I used to, so my cousins, Jim and Mike, I'd call them and talk to them all the time. And I would call and their dad would answer. And I'd say, hi, can I speak to Mike? And he'd literally hold the phone away from his head and be like, Mike, it's either a girl or your cousin Peter.
No way.
Oh, yeah. I had like the biggest girl voice. Like total. It was like, I didn't have like a little boy. I had like a girl voice.
People would always think it was my sister when I called.
Yeah.
Do you have any recordings from back then at all?
Maybe.
Oh, they would be so golden.
Maybe some like old tapes or something. But and then so like one day, I think, I might have been 8th grade, I guess. My mom tells the story. And so like I went to bed and then I woke up and
man.
I walked down the stairs. Like I didn't go through the it just like, so I'm walking down the stairs in the house. I go, hey mom, what's for breakfast? And she tells the story. She's like, I literally thought a man was in our house. She's like, I had no idea where that voice is coming from. So yeah, like right from then on, everybody's like, oh my God, you're going to have to be on the radio.
Oh.
So I was class president and I was supposed to answer your question, I was supposed to do the morning announcements. But in order to do the full morning announcements, you had to read all the damn announcements.
You didn't have the technique down.
No,
yet.
I didn't have the ear prompter at that point, but I would get on the microphone and do like I'd update people on stuff like in my own words, like, hey, there's a class fundraiser going on this weekend. Come meet us in front of the high school. We're going to be doing a car wash, something like that.
Gotcha.
Tell your friends, tell your family. So I'd do my own like in my own words announcements. But there was another kid, Mike, he was really into theater, and he actually did the morning announcements. And then after he stopped doing it, ironically, I don't know if you ever listen to Howard Stern, but he used to have a character on called High Pitch Eric. And it's this guy with this, he just had a condition. His voice was like higher than high. And the kid that was a year below me in school, who, God love him, this kid was amazing because he had a crazy high, like helium voice, like he sounded like this. And
you can also go high.
Yeah. And he was like, screw it, I'm going to do the morning announcements. He's like, good morning, Winchester High School. Today we've got this at the top. And I was like, oh, I love this kid. He's not hiding his voice. He's doing the morning announcements. Like, good for him.
That's wild.
So that was like influential to you to do it?
No, did you real quick, did you play any sports? Did you do swimming?
I did. I was a competitive swimmer. My coach, so one meet, I got my arm caught on a lane line, and I was just frantically flailing, trying to get down to the other side as fast as I could. And I hit it, and I didn't really know what happened. And I kept swimming, and I came up, and everybody, like the whole room is like silent, like the whole like auditorium. Like I'm like, what happened? Yeah. Apparently, my arm got caught in the lane line, and I swung into the other lane. And I guess I kicked a kid in the face. Like I thought I kicked the lane line.
The lane line,
no.
Yeah.
And so, Quadzilla kicks you in the face. You're going to feel it.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my!
Like I won.
Yeah, I was like, and so my coach is like running to the judge. He's like, he's blind. He didn't know what he was doing. He had no idea he's blind. Like they thought I just like went like house and just attacked this kid. Yeah. And then the other funny thing that happened, because I had like you shouldn't be that light and be that strong in the quads. One of our swim meets, they have these, I don't know if you've ever seen a swim meet, but they have flags 10 feet out from the wall.
Off the line, you're jumping.
Yeah, so the flags are there, so when you're doing backstroke, you're 10 feet away from the wall.
Okay.
Like my very first meet, I jumped out and caught the flags in my neck and did like a and I like swung around and hit the ground. And everybody's like, what is going on with this guy?
Quads.
And my very last meet ever, I made it to states. So I was in the state championships. My senior year was last time I was ever going to swim competitively, like ever. And basically, like, I was an okay swimmer, but my jump off was ridiculous.
Yeah, you gain a lead.
Yeah, like I'm in the air looking down, and everybody's like on their third stroke.
Flags.
I'm like, what's up down there? And so my very last meet, the very last time I was ever going to swim, I put everything into the jumping off the blocks, and I ripped the block out of its moorings. Like it was bolted to the ground, and the block goes flying back, and I just go flap into the water. And I look up to like where I know my coach is, and like he's quiet for a second, and they don't cancel the race. Usually they go bam, 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 bam. Like it's like a false start or something. They call something like when there's something bad that happened.
It's on,
and I just hear my coach go, go. And so I'm like standing in the pool, and then I have to like start from standing, and then I do the whole race, and I get out. I'm like, the block's broke, and they're like, oh well, you lost. Oh, and that was my very last time swimming. I'm like, what horse crap? Yeah,
Rip the block.
Yeah,
the pool.
Oh,
I mean, it was obviously, it's not like it was perfectly secure, and
No,
I'm
it
like,
was brand new
and I
pool.
didn't He-Man
Say
it,
it.
but like, yeah, it was on its way out, and I pushed it over the edge.
That is amazing.
So where did the voiceover start then? Where did their first like radio, or where did you get your?
Wait,
like,
did you real quick? Sorry,
Yeah,
Anthony.
no
Did you have any like theater or acting and stuff like that?
No, I did like one school play in sixth grade. I wasn't really into it when I was younger. I wasn't really into performing or anything like that. So to answer Anthony's question, when I was 11 years old, there was a local radio station doing a fundraiser called Swim for Sight, and they were going to be raising money for vision research. And it was hosted by this local AM radio station, and the host of the morning show had macular degeneration. You know, years later, I found out we had very different versions of it, but still, it was the first time I'd heard anybody on the public airwaves talking about macular degeneration. So I went and I did this fundraiser when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. We'd swim for, you know, they give you an hour to swim, and however many laps you did, you'd have people pledge you money for the laps.
Yeah.
And so, and I did radio interviews.
Rip the damn block off the pool.
Yeah. No, they told me to climb in gently back then. Take it easy, big guy. Just go slow.
Listen, Quadzilla.
Yeah. No, back then I was still Pete with the high voice.
Yeah, you're
okay.
little. Okay.
Yeah, but so I got the little exposure to radio, and then after all that time in high school, everybody telling me, you should be on the radio, you should do radio. So when I got to college, no, they said it more like, you should be on radio. It's pissa. It's pissa. But so I got to college, and I was very, I was starting to like, maybe I want to do broadcast. And so I started calling the people that I did the Swim for Sight with, and they gave me an internship at a radio station in Boston, like right then and there.
You remember the station number?
So the one I was on doing the Swim for Sight was WBZ AM 1030, which I grew up to do traffic reports for, which is ironic because I obviously never drove a car.
What's the traffic like, Pete?
Yeah, people get a big kick out of that.
That is great.
And then, so the guy that did the Swim for Sight went to another radio station, WRKO, another AM radio station, 680 in Boston. And I actually grew up, once I graduated college, I became their creative director. But that's where I got the... So I got in there, and he was in marketing, right? So that's why he put on the Swim for Sight. He was like the marketing director. So my first job, they like gave me some Dunkin' Donuts gift certificates, and they're like, go hand these out. Because on the bottom of them, it said WRKO, you know, courtesy of WRKO. Right. And so I'm like standing on street corners handing out like gift certificates. And I like come back one day, I'm like, I kind of wanted to do stuff on air. And they're like, well, you do have the voice for it, I guess. So then,
how old were you at this point?
I was 18. It was my freshman year of college. And so they switched me into a role in production where at least I was in a room with a microphone. And I started doing some voiceovers, like just kind of like practicing, like reading commercials and stuff. And I was horrible because I had a horrible Boston accent, like horrible. Like I had a bad, like, so the first thing they did was they sent me to V&A classes, like voice and articulation classes, because I just had a mess of a speaking voice and I spoke really fast.
What did you sound like?
I was like, my name's Peter. I'm from Winchester. My cousins went to Harvard, and I live here with my mother and father.
Serious.
Like, and it was fast. And like when I went out of state, people were like, "What are you saying?" Like they couldn't even like understand me. And so I had to like learn from like scratch. This guy was like teaching me like, "Your name is Peter." I'm like, "Peter. My name's Peter." He's like, "Peter." Yeah. And so we literally spent. And I remember talking to him. I was like, I sound like a mental patient speaking this slowly. Yeah. And he's like, you're not going to be able to learn to speak at a normal speed until you slow it all down and put all the letters back into your vocabulary, into your diction. And it was a long, and then I was
diction. German? I haven't heard that word.
Yeah.
And I've got a big Greek nose, and I was very nasally. I was like, my name is Peter. Like I had no idea how to use my voice. It was deep, right? So everybody's like, oh, it's deep. You should be on the radio.
Yeah.
But then it was like this long road of like, well, how do I actually use this tool? It was years later, one of my voice coaches told me that my voice was basically like my father's race car being driven by a chimpanzee. She's like, you got this great voice and no clue how to use it.
That's where I was most impressed when you sent the file for our intro of just the basic, sentence of Dan Mancina, Anthony Ferraro. two blind guys collide to bring you a podcast. How much like life you actually bring into the words.
It's theatrical. Like it's a whole production.
Well, I learned that from so some people might know the name, some people might not. But Don LaFontaine he's the when you think like in a world
LaFontaine
like,
Ford.
That was he was the like god of voiceovers.
Okay.
And so I was like 18 years old, 19 years old, working at a radio station, and I called this guy's agent out of the blue, and I'm like, I'm 19, looking to get into voiceovers. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm losing my eyesight. Would he call me? Like, no chance in hell. He was like making $6 million a year doing voiceovers in Hollywood, driving around to studios in his limousine every day.
Yeah.
And like 3 days later, he calls me back from the back of his limo and starts giving me lessons.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like just out of the blue, like the nicest guy in the world. And I can't thank him enough for everything he did for me. Like he is, when people think like voiceover, like they're thinking his voice still. He's been dead for a while, but they still think of him. And he taught me that. He said, listen, movie trailers are so hard because, and this is in an age when like In a World wasn't campy yet. It was like a very important phrase that meant something. He's like, if your whole script is like, in a world where two men can't see, this is how they achieve. Like that's not a lot of words, right?
Yeah.
And so each word, like if you're doing a long podcast like this, every word isn't as important. There's thousands of them. Right. But when you're doing a movie trailer, like in a world has to set a whole mood. Yeah. Now, if I say, so say it's an action thing, it's going to be in a world, like, here comes the energy. If it's a drama, it's more like in a world. And you can even do an in a world comedy. It could be like in a world where two guys don't know what they're doing. Like it's it's really important to give those three words. And it could be.
It's a voicing.
Is that a flexion? What is that? Sorry, what's that word?
Inflection.
So that's inflection. Is that what the definition of that is?
Well, that's more. I'm talking about the tone. So the inflection would be, now everybody when they think in a world, they say it that way. They say in a world, but it could be in a world, in a world, in a world. You can hit each word differently. That's a hard phrase to do it on.
Depending on how much you pause at the point in the word, almost.
Yeah, I mean, you can, with a phrase that people aren't as used to hearing in a certain way, say like okay, I hate you, right? Uh-huh. So you could say, I hate you. So I'm hitting the first word. It's another 3-word phrase that can mean very different things.
I love you?
You can say, all right. You could say like, I love you. Like, that's how I feel. Uh-huh. Or it could be, I love you. Like, it's more important. The love is more important. Uh-huh. Or you could say, I love you, which is more of a rhetorical to someone who just said it to me. So you need to figure out which word needs the emphasis. It's really funny because people are like, it's just talking. I'm like, it's not just talking.
This reminds me so much of music. It's an instrument that you're honing in, because even with singing, like you're saying the pronunciation on each word, like I've learned that you can make each phrase softer or louder depending on how you do it, and that's going to give a different feel. Yeah. And then also with that being said, take one guitar chord, for example. You can play that guitar chord in 100 different rhythms to make it a different voice. Like reggae would be like a, shorter, like cutty, like rhythm. And then you have like blues, like different things. It's just how you voice the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think people understand. It's a really great analogy. I've actually watched YouTube videos where people are describing music that way, and people get it. I think because not everybody can play guitar that well to understand it, and not everybody can speak with this much control, but I think they can. They're like, everybody can talk.
100%.
Was that intuitive to you, or did you learn?
No, it's years. So that's why everybody's like, oh, I feel like I want to get into voiceovers. So like I started when I was 18, kind of noodling around, right? I didn't really take it seriously until I was about 21. I didn't make my first dollar until I was like 26. And I didn't go full-time voiceovers until I was close to 33 or 34. Wow. It's just one of those, it just takes time. Like, and every year I was working at it every day. And every year I'd listen to my demo from the year before. I'm like, that was horrible. That was so bad. And it's also the hardest thing in voiceovers is to not love your voice. Like, and so like with this voice, everybody's always telling me your voice is amazing. So I was thinking like everything needed to sound like this all the time. So I'd be like, they'd send me like a cancer fundraiser thing. And I'm like, millions of people are suffering from cancer, because it sounded awesome when I said it like that. But it's not about, like, I had to learn to, like, just get off the gas pedal. Like, everything isn't, you can be much more emotive. I could use a higher register. I work in a handful of different registers and keys all the time. And, like, you know, that needs to be like, you know, millions of people every year suffering from cancer. They need your help. Donate today. Like, higher, more connected. Like, this is affecting me.
Because you're providing the emotion.
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to connect the script to the person. You have to turn words on the page into an emotional connection. And that has very little to do with, I sound awesome. So many people, I mean, I'm out there on social media these days, which makes people think I'm some sort of an expert. And I get, I'd say 30 a day. People will send me like video messages. They're like, hey, Mr. Gustin, I have a deep voice and want to do movie trailers.
Yeah.
What should I do? And I always tell them, I'm like, first thing is, don't talk about the tone of your voice. Don't tell me how deep it is. Learn how to act, because voice acting is acting. People forget that. They think it's voice acting, but no, it's voice acting. Acting is the very, very key part of it.
It really is, man. And it makes sense that as you listen to your old tapes, that I got better. You know, that just shows that it is an art, and it is like something that can be changed, worked on.
Yeah, I mean, like the first time you hopped on a skateboard, like how good were you?
Yeah,
you know, after years and years and hours of practice, like you learn how to everything. You learn everything.
Those 10,000 hours.
Yeah, 10,000.
You can only learn by doing it too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Man, how old are you now?
I'm 44.
44.
So if I'm not mistaken, when you got out of school, though, you were like, I'm ready to take over the voiceover world. Like, I'm going to New York City, move to New York City, and go. Did you go to the biggest agent you knew of or something?
Yeah, I had a friend who hooked me up. I was a little out of my league, but I got an interview with the biggest agent at the biggest agency in America. He was in charge of radio, at least, which to me was the end all. It's just funny, like coming from radio, I thought radio was everything. Yeah. Years later, I found, oh yeah, there's TV too. But I got a meeting with this agent, and he played. It was literally a cassette tape back then. I brought him my cassette tape, and he played it, and he's like, you sound great. I was like, cool. Like, this is like, oh my God. Like, I'm just going to break. Like, I'd prepared. I went to Boston University, and I got a couple degrees and a couple things that were like a backup career. Like, I thought I would maybe do advertising or some work in psychology or something, but that was a backup. Like, I thought I was just going to be a voice actor. And this guy, he's like, yeah, your demo's great. And the next sentence was, but no one's going to work with you because you're disabled. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And so this is 99, right? This isn't the time when you can like go on social media and be like, this guy told me I'm disabled.
Yeah.
That wasn't a thing.
Social media what?
Yeah, it was much more like in 99, if you were in the workplace and you told someone like, I'm having difficulty doing my job because I'm disabled, they'd be like, you're fired. Yeah.
Go find something else.
Yeah, like, well, if you can't do the job, get the F out. Like, that was more the mentality in 99. And people these days are like, I can't believe you said that to you. You should have complained. I'm like, complain to who? Like, there was no one to complain to.
Especially coming from, like, the dude who's at the top.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there was nowhere to go. There was no... But here's the thing. So I was pissed. I was a grown man, I thought at the time. I was like 21, 22, whatever. I held it together until I got down to the sidewalk, and then I just started bawling. Because I thought, like, and you're bawling in the middle of the streets of New York City, no one cares.
Yeah, walking.
Yeah, it's just a normal thing.
Yeah, you might as well just be in your bed.
Oh, there's a guy crying.
Yeah, totally. But so I was devastated, and he really did kind of knock me out of my career path. I started working behind the scenes in radio and putting together pieces and making production and doing some comedy writing and stuff like that. It took me years to even get back to voice. Like, I was still practicing it as best I could, but I didn't know, it just had become rote at that point. Like, I'd practiced doing voiceovers, but I didn't know why I was doing it anymore. I really kind of lost my path.
Still were doing it.
Yeah. And
somewhat.
Working in production, like, I had to throw my voice on things from time to time. But I say this many, many, many years later, like, the dude actually wasn't wrong. It wasn't so much that I couldn't walk into one job and memorize the script like I did at the time and do a good job. But voiceovers, for the most part, I mean, there are jobs that pay like cuckoo money, but that's the golden goose job. They're very few and far between. Most of them,
It's a grind.
few $100 there, maybe $1,000 here, like.
Yeah.
And to
Ghost, you
live,
talk
you're
about
trying
money.
to live.
Yeah, but so in order to really make a living at voiceovers, you got to do a lot of jobs, right?
Yeah.
So what he meant was, he actually didn't even mean that the clients, the buyers, weren't going to work with me. He's like, no agent is going to want to work with you because you take forever to deliver the copy.
And there's a guy next door that can see, and
He can read 10 scripts when it takes you that much time to just memorize one, which is what he meant. He didn't explain it very
it
well.
could have been delivered better.
Yeah, but he didn't need to.
No.
I mean, no matter how he delivered it, the message was,
It fired you up.
he's not going to represent.
In
Yeah,
the end.
it did. But years later, so like and maybe I'm even giving the guy a little credit, years later,
Yeah.
trying to put some like meaning to what he said. But that's how I took it. So years later, when I developed the ear prompter system, so I no longer have to look at the copy. I hear something in the robot voice in one of my ears in an earbud, and then I let it get 2 to 3 seconds, more like 1.5 to 2 seconds ahead of me, and then I start going. So now when copy comes in, I don't even bother. And so this is years and years and years and years and 10,000 hours of practice later. Now I get the copy, I hit go and start going.
You're doing it in real time.
Yeah, real time, every script. I've got 1.5 seconds to process it, realize how I want to deliver it, figure out which word I want to inflect in which way, in which tone, in which emotion. And I feel like I work at about a 95% clip of efficiency. If I screw up, it's rare. Like I get caught off guard by like, oh, I did not know that's the direction they were going with that copy.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have read that one ahead of time. So yeah, these days, when he said no one want to work with me because I'd only be able to deliver 1 or 2 scripts a day, these days I do 50 to 100, and there's still time to spare. Like I can still make TikTok videos in the middle of the day.
insane.
50 to 100 a day?
Yeah,
That's insane.
that's pretty far above.
Like 3 to 20
average.
seconds, would you say, each one?
Nothing as short as 3.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even think there were that many
Oh, dude, there's
jobs out there for
Well,
it's insane.
that's
Yeah.
insane.
Pete's one of the best.
Well, you're the top.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he is the best.
That's
I work for a lot of
Insane.
radio
Where was-
stations, and during every season of the year, I'm doing different things because I do a lot of work for the NFL. Then in baseball season, I do a lot of work for a lot of baseball franchises out here. Fair amount of work for the NHL. And then, I work in different news organizations as well. So as the news cycles ramp up and ramp down.
Yeah.
And then, so I also work, of course, in lots of entertainment. And when the new sweeps come out and they're promoting the hell out of their shows.
Yeah.
There's always, Maggie and I haven't taken a vacation in 5 years because every time we look like, oh, well, I can't do it in March because March Madness. And it's like, well, we can't do it in April. It's the start of the baseball season. And it's like May,
insane.
there's always some news in May sweeps or something. And then June is the NBA and NHL finals. It's like
nonstop.
every month, it's like, well, you can't be away for that. It's a major event.
Media is never ending.
Yeah. So, and then, this morning, as we're recording this, there was the drummer of the Foo Fighters passed away, unfortunately. And I find out at 5:00 a.m. Pacific time that happened, and all of the rock radio stations I work on from Detroit, where you're near, and down to Tampa Bay, where you guys just were. So the Shark in Tampa Bay and WRIF in Detroit need to run promos. Rest in peace. This is the riff, and so I'm up at 5 a.m. recording stuff for that. And actually, Anthony, the very first time he was over my house, who was the first person in the country that found out.
Literally, Pete was the first person, one of the first people to find out about Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, yeah, you told
when
me.
They sent me promos, and then everybody grabbed their phone. They're like, "There's nothing in the newswire about it yet." I'm like, "There will
And
be."
the second he started
Wow.
reading, you got the notification. It
Yeah.
was like nuts.
Yeah. So I knew. So I always know. I remember.
That's another thing is you have to go through so many emotions a day.
That's something Maggie has
That's a great
started
point.
to understand, is that I'm not a robot. Like I listen to the robot voice, but I have to connect with all of these pieces.
Yeah.
And even if I was just reading rock pieces all day, like, more nonstop rock, commercial free on WRIF, like even if it was just that all day, like to get that amped up,
Yeah.
like all day. Like it's funny. I used to know
Because you're acting, you're putting yourself in
totally.
that. Yeah.
Like there's top 40 DJs. The top 40 stations, the one that play like all the current hits, and those guys like, hey, it's JoJo, and you're rocking with me, and we got the latest one from Justin Bieber coming up. Like those guys, like they're like sweating and exhausted at the end of their 3-hour shift because it's like all this energy, all this fake energy, and that's like one type of high energy. But yeah, I do a lot of like horrible news events.
Yeah.
And
Does that affect you mentally?
yeah, at the end of every day, I mean, so I know a lot of voiceovers. I speak to a lot of my friends that are in the business, and a lot of them do like 4 sessions a day, like 5 sessions a day. And, you know, there's guys that do 20 or 30. Like, I'm at the way high end. And that's not necessarily a reflection of my skill. I choose to be as diversified as possible. It's a longstanding fear of mine that, like, maybe I'm going to lose a bunch of clients. Yeah, exactly. Like, you know,
That's
just
great.
bank it all as I can when I can. So I
52
probably take on more jobs than I should, but yeah, and they're all, and I try and be as diversified as possible. Like, I never wanted to be the rock guy, the news guy, the country guy,
How
the
do you
comedy
cope
guy.
with all the emotions and stuff through one day?
I'm pretty wiped out at the end of the day. And Maggie's like, you know, my fiance, she's a nanny and she's dealing with kids and their temper tantrums and they're
Also exhausting.
yeah, and they're, you know, high stress parents and, you know, sitting in traffic. And she's like, you sat in a stupid soundproof booth all day. Like, why can you say, or how can you say that you're so like beat? I'm like, I literally like helped to like fundraisers and people died, and then I had to get amped up, and then I gotta be, then I work for like a lot of those like connect to women 35 54, like, hey, you know, like whatever those things are, like another hit from Lionel Richie coming up next, like I gotta be like Mr. Connected to you, and it's like
smooth and sexy,
and it's on a dime. Like when you do that many sessions a day, it's
I was gonna say, someone will send you like email, hey, can you do this? And you'll have it to them. You must have it to them in like 5 minutes.
That's my turnaround time, 5 minutes. Yeah.
5 minutes.
Insane. I'll be doing a video with Pete outside because I've been with him before, and we hung out a few times last time I was in California, and we were making videos, and like we'd be in the middle of a video, and he's like, oh shit, I gotta run inside real quick, and like runs up to his studio and starts reading, you know.
Yeah, you did one
scripts.
today where you came upstairs, and I was like, oh, I wonder how long it's going to take him. You were back down in like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how you have it down to a science like that.
I mean, if they send a 30-second script, the acting takes me 34 seconds, you know, because I breathe. But it's a matter of getting into the booth, putting the script into my prompter system, and then I record in one booth, and then I send it out on another one. So there's, but the scripts, no one's going to send me, very rarely do I get a script over a minute. You know, my stuff is generally 10 seconds, 15, 30, or 60.
Which is even harder because you have to grab people that whole time. You have to keep them engaged.
Yes.
So
yeah, like, exactly. Going back to, you know, less words.
You have less time to do more.
Right.
It's like
I feel like every style of voiceover and every style of acting has its own challenges. Like, but I do feel like the people that are reading audio books, whereas they're conveying a story, which comes to you over time and needs to have a cohesive, like, you know, a theme. If it's like a space adventure, it's got to convey that over a long period of time. But like Anthony just said, mine is like each word has to be said perfectly, perfect tone, perfect speed. And that's the other thing about TV. They send you copy and they're like, we have SOT, sound on tape, old term. So it's like, it'll be Joe Biden being like, we need to come together. So it's going to be a 10-second promo. Joe Biden said, we need to come together. That took, 1.87 seconds. That means my read has to be done in 8.13 seconds. Exactly. And not like close to 8. It has to be done in 8.13. Right. And it's kind of funny. So years and years and years of doing this, I walk out and I'm like, ooh, it was 8.2. And like I'm like the machine in your brain does amazing things. Like I'm not watching a clock. But
that's nuts.
I start to realize, so I've done it so much. Like
that was 8.1.
Yeah. Like, to get it to the point, like the tenths of a second is insane.
Yeah. So a lot of sponsorships on TV, when you're watching a lot of TV networks, any TV network, any of the ones that I work for and even that I don't, this program brought to you by Viagra. Can't get it up? Get Viagra. Like whatever the commercial is, they're generally 5-second rejoins. And some of them, like the bigger advertisers, it's funny, the people with the more money have little to say. So it'll be like, this program brought to you by the Lexus December to Remember sales event. And like, so that was too fast.
You.
Yeah. But that's too fast. So they need it as a 5. So you'd need to say like, this program brought to you by the Lexus December to Remember sales event. That was 5. I almost guarantee you that was 5. But then,
count it, folks. Let us know if that was 5.
But then it's like the little guys. It's like, this program brought to you by Dick's Locksmith.
Yeah.
If you need to get your lockpick, call Dick's right away today. Like they try and like jam in
Yeah.
everything.
Do you do the like the disclaimers too, where you're like, this thing could, like at the very end when they have to be like,
I work for a lot of financial advisors throughout the country, and those guys, they have to. I actually feel bad for them. They pay for this radio advertising, and they're like, investment involves risk and no future guaranteed. But I can't even think of them. They're like, so I put those like on fast in my earbud, and those I literally turn my brain off. I'm like, I hearing it, and I'm just going, blah, 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 blah. Remember FDIC, FINRA, SATC. Those things just have to fly.
What do you do to like? You're talking all day, every day, like 50 to 100 sessions, a day. What do you do to prepare your voice? How do you keep it smooth? And like, have you had any bad periods where you got like really sick?
I had a horrible, like, my career is over period when I started getting really popular, and I was probably doing like 30 scripts a day, and I could only work. My voice is horrible in the morning. I woke up rough, like it was like bad. I was like, nonstop rock coming up next. Like kind of sounded like badass, but was obviously like I was losing my voice. And then at the very end of the day, it's like, the latest news and information you need.
Yeah,
like I just had nothing
faded.
except for like, fade. That's a perfect word for it. I was faded. And what was going on is I just was doing so much work, and my vocal cords, if you just wake up, and so I do work all over the globe. So I wake up and my clients in England are hitting me up at 6 a.m. Like they're like, you're late, hurry up, get in there. And then I'm working till late at night. Like I've just got clients everywhere, even the ones that are, the morning show next morning, you need to have this recorded by 9 p.m. at night. We need to get it into production. We need to have it ready to roll at 5:30 in the morning, problem with the morning show. So if you just wake up and you're, like, it's Jade on 101 WRIF. Like, that's a lot on your vocal cords.
Yeah.
Like, most people's first words are in the morning, like, I need coffee. And mine are like blasting out rock, like. So I was just putting a ton of strain on my voice. And by the time I got to see the doctors, they're like, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to have no voice. You're going to ruin your vocal cords. You're just going to have this scratchy, scraggly nothing. So every morning now, I've got like a 25-minute routine where I literally stretch and strengthen my vocal cords. People keep asking me to post it. I'm like, nobody wants to watch this. The point of this routine isn't to sound good. It sounds horrible.
Yeah.
It sounds bad. But
Like,
it's
what's
also
the first thing you do?
I start with the word home, and I take it from my home, and I climb the ladder of my lowest range to my highest range that I can comfortably work in.
Wow.
And it's not.
That was smooth.
It's not. Well, that's the other thing. I was unable to go like. Like I'd have vocal folds in the middle. Like none of this sounds good. It all sounds bad. But when I started, it was like like I'd fold
Like how
into
if me
different
and Dan
octaves.
were to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to strengthen my vocal cords are like a muscle. You can't just like abuse them. You have to stretch them out, keep them lubricated, keep drinking, and strengthen them and be able to do all that stuff that I need to do throughout the day so consistently so that they don't give out. Yeah, there was a period. It was a 3 or 4 month period as I was like trying to deal with it, and then there was like a 3 or 4 month period, and I couldn't stop working. So there was never a period that I could stop working, but I had to start my strengthening like yesterday in order to keep working.
I've heard of artists who have done that, like ruin their vocal cords and then gone to teaching where like they're more coming from the diaphragm and less from.
Yeah, I was. I did a lot of my power. I mean, I don't know how much your audience wants to hear about the mechanics of voice, but I did a lot right here in my neck. Like I thought that was like a bad. Like I was doing a lot of rock in sports, and I was there. It's like this weekend, the New England Patriots take on the San Francisco 49ers. Like it was all like right here, like I'm running. And then I had to learn to like drop that weight. Like when you're working with your throat,
chest,
like I would literally get like throat pulls in the middle of the day. I'm like, oh, like I think I hurt my neck muscles.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they flare up.
Yeah.
It is a muscle that you're using.
Totally.
Did I hear the GoPro again?
No.
No. Oh, sorry. I thought I did a minute ago, but.
Yeah, I had to learn to drop that all down. There's so many mechanics of it.
Yeah.
You got to learn your optimum pitch and where to come from and how to
That's
breathe.
extremely fascinating to me. Yeah.
I really I can literally talk about your voiceover stuff for so many hours. I'm not even kidding. There's so many more questions I want to ask you, so we have to get you back on.
Yeah.
But I really want to switch gears because I didn't even know you as a voice actor, like voiceover guy. I had no idea you even did that. So when I was like I would see your videos, and I knew you as a blind surfer. That's where I first learned about you, and I was like, dude, that is freaking awesome. Like this, like I surf as well, but like, you know, just a little bit. And you were out there sending it, and there's like a whole documentary. Check out on his YouTube, The Blind Surfer, great documentary. And you do episodes like every week, right?
Yeah.
So how did that start? Like,
Did you surf on the East?
did you surf in Massachusetts?
No, I never. It wasn't even like a sport I'd even heard of. I mean, I'd heard of it, but not to like saying that I was going to go surf was
Never
like taking a trip to the moon. Like that's nothing I'm ever going to do. Like that's not a thing people do in Boston. It was just so outside the realm of like my thought process. But we moved from Boston out to San Diego, and my world had been shutting in on me as my eyesight was crapping out. Like I used to play pickup basketball with my friends. I could see the ball a little bit. I used to ride bikes when, you know, I didn't mind getting murdered by a vehicle.
So you hit that parked car, right?
Yeah,
That's what I
35 times. Yeah, so like I liked being active, and the more my vision went away, the less active I found that I could be. And I was basically just weightlifting all the time. Like that was my activity. And so I was like all jacked up, but with
Beats
nothing.
Up your body a little bit.
It was taking a big toll. Like I was getting into my 30s, and like I was doing powerlifting just because I just wanted to be active. Like I'm a power lifter.
What'd your highest squat get up to?
I never did more than 495 because I never had that much in a home. So I'd gone to a home gym at that point.
Gotcha. Didn't have enough weights.
So there was a hit in the old
hey,
gym.
Ben, can you sit on the bar for me?
Yeah.
There's a thing called a hip sled in the gym.
Oh, yeah,
where you lay on your back and you push this sled up.
Yeah.
And my friends and I, they used to get a kick out of I'd do 1,005 pounds on the hip sled. That's all we could find in the gym. And I remember not just once, but a bunch of times. So my friends would gather all the 45s. They'd stack them all up, and then they'd put the ones on the top and everything. And I'd sit there in 1,005 on the hip sled. I'd do like 15. Like I could just do it. And some guys are like, hip sleds are stupid. Like you're using all the weights in the gym. It's just a stupid exercise. Anybody can do that. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah. And I had one guy tell me, because I was only 5'9", he's like, try doing that when you're 6'3" and you have to bring your legs down further. I'm like,
oh my God.
I'm like, I can only work with what I've got, buddy. Sorry.
Listen, I ripped a block.
Yeah, dude.
All right.
Yeah.
You don't even know.
But there was nothing like
high school.
So outside of like putting up the next big weight, which didn't matter to anybody in the world but me, so I kind of missed that competitive and not even competing against other people, but just like when you're in sport, like, you know, as skaters, like what's the next trick? What's the next thing I can do? How can I do this better? How can I land this one more consistently? Like I didn't have anything like that in my life other than voiceovers, which is probably why I became a maniac at voiceovers. I was like, I'm going to attack this.
But that's your job, and you need like something separate like from work.
Yeah. So when we moved out here to San Diego, like in Boston, if you want to make friends, like if you don't know anybody, you just walk into a bar and you go, sports. And like people will talk sports with you.
Oh, I heard you on the radio.
Yeah. Well, that too. Like, oh, I worked for the sports radio station. So if like I didn't know anybody and I was lonely, I'd just walk in and be like, I work for WEEI. And they'd be like, oh, let's talk about the Patriots. It was easy. And then I come out here to San Diego and I walk into a bar and I'm like, sports. And everybody's like, organized sports are stupid. It's a different mentality. So like we'd be going places and everybody was like, how was the surf today? I'm like, I don't know. Like, why is everybody asking me that? It's because like literally everybody here surfed. And part of me was like thinking we'd do it just for the sake of like getting to like know people in the community. Yeah. I'm like, well, if I surf, maybe I can talk to people about surfing. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, maybe I can see I didn't understand the intricacies of again, we're not gonna bore people with breaking down surfing, but it's way more intricate than I thought. Yeah. I just thought I'd be like, oh, there's a wave coming, I'll ride it. Yeah, exactly. And that's what my dumbness at least allowed me to attempt the sport. And so I did. And like Maggie,
it's more balls. It's like you're brave.
Maybe balls, brave.
My dad always says you're stupid or you're big balls. I don't know what it is.
Both. But yeah, Maggie and I went and grabbed a foam board and I started teaching myself how to do it, and I was catching whitewash, and I like literally thought that was surfing. I thought like the wave had broke, and I ride like you'd ride it like a boogie board. I'm like, I'm surfing, and after a handful of months of doing that, Maggie's like, you know, you're not really surfing, right? I'm like, why? Because I'd known so little about surfing. I'd never watched a surfing video. My eyes had gotten so bad to that point. I mean, I maybe could have stared it, but I wouldn't gotten much
Never
out of it.
seen like riding the face.
I never saw anybody riding the face of a wave at all. Like I didn't understand the sport. I thought if I got up on the whitewash and rode it forward and stood up, I was surfing. I'm like, I'm surfing.
Well, it is.
It is. But then she so she's like, you're going to need to talk to someone that can explain this to you better than me. And that's when I got in touch with Josh. Like I hired a coach, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's so much more to this.
I have to drop in?
Yeah, drop in, turn, read the wave.
Catch the wave before it breaks?
Right, yeah. And like I spent a year nose diving because I didn't understand. Like I was still going straight, just like straight down the wave. I had no concept of left or right. I'd never seen a person get on a wave and ride it sideways.
Never even seen
and to me, in my stupid Boston brain, I was like, the wave goes straight, I go straight, right? So I literally just used to that's where my late drops came from. Like I'm known in the surfing community as like amazing late drops. It's because I thought that's what you did. You just got to the highest point of the wave and just dropped.
That's what I do.
Yeah. I had no, like, that's what I thought it was. And then eventually Josh and other people are like, no, you want to get into it at a good angle and ride the face. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much. But that's what I wanted. Like
you're supposed to cut to the side.
Yeah, dig your rail, get in at the
right
point.
Go the way the wave's going to.
Hit the,
the way
it's a left
breaking.
or right.
Do you like backside or front? I know backside is considered harder, right?
My backside takeoff is really good for some reason. We can't quite figure out why, but my backside takeoff is really good, and my front side maneuvering is a little better.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Shut up, Super Dog.
Yeah, Super Dog's outside being mad.
Have you been barreled yet?
No, not for real. I've had waves like crash on me and I've doggy doored my way out. So I've never had the ability, because of my work, I can't like travel to good waves. I feel like
I live in California. There's good waves.
There's good waves, but it's not like so the other thing is, so this is the other hard part about being a blind surfer. Like there are good barreling waves probably all over the place, right? But it's really crowded. There's priority out in the wave. You have to like kind of
super local vibe.
Yes. And like, we can't, me and Josh or whoever I'm with, we can't just like go into a local crowd and be like, hey, blind guy's going to be taking up a lot of space here.
Yeah.
So we basically ride the best of what's available.
Yep.
Like I feel like my skill set at this point, I mean, I caught a whole pile of waves today where if it was barreling, I would have been getting barreled. But it just wasn't a barreling wave. But where the barreling wave is, there's a bunch of like aggro, like this is my wave, get out of here. And we're not out there to fight. We're just out there to have a good time. So if I could take time off from work and go to Indonesia or down to some of the like
Slater's wave,
or if we can get you to Slater's wave,
like a wave pool.
If anyone's out there that's listening, we need to get Pete to Slater's wave.
Yeah, Josh,
because I know that feeling. I know that feeling because I've been at skate parks before where I'm like, I just want to skate this whole park, but I don't want to bother everyone by going and taking like so much time to feel everything out and all this stuff.
Yeah, I definitely that's the one time when I'm out there, Josh does a really good job of finding spots for me that don't make me feel that way. Like I kind of sometimes will float into a crowd and I instantly like my butthole like clenches. I'm like, there's people around. Like I don't want to take off and crash into these people. Like it just takes all the fun out of it. Like I'm out there to relax and enjoy. And Josh puts me in a safe position to get the best waves that are available where I'm not going to be an issue. But then we get into a crowd. I'm like, this isn't fun anymore. I'm so stressed.
Have you had any anxiety attacks out in the water?
So when I was actually teaching myself in the beginning by myself, I was too nervous to even address a coach. Like I'd just go out into the water. I didn't want to get a coach and be like, I'm blind. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never surfed before. I thought it'd just be too much for a coach. Yeah. So I literally spent 9 months or maybe more just by myself going out there and not being a surfer, not used to being in the water like by myself. Like we'd go to like the worst places. Like no one surfs the places that I used to go to.
Yeah. So you're like, these are private beaches. No, there's no one here because it sucks.
Yeah. I did the same thing with skating earlier. I just went to like the worst ledge that nobody skated. Just because I'm like by myself, I'm gonna relearn here.
Yeah, it's where you're comfortable. Like I don't need the stress of being around people watching me figuring out like, why is this guy doing everything weird? So, but the panic attacks weren't from what you'd think. I'd be sitting there on my surfboard, like waiting to like listen for a wave, like, and I'd just be like listening, and I'd start freaking out that a shark was near me.
I get the same thing.
Like I just, every time, like there could be one underneath me, like RFN, like right now, like right under me. I have no idea that the shark is right here. Yeah. And like, I was so far away from everybody. I feel like if you're surfing with other people, someone's gonna be like, shark! But like, I was all by myself. I was too far.
Oh, dude, I'd be thinking that the wole time.
Oh, there were times when it was like all of my willpower. And then like, I watched that stupid movie, The Meg, like that giant stupid shark. Just come, like, and I just
wait, the robot one?
No, the prehistoric, like massive shark.
Did you do the voiceover?
No, I didn't. I wouldn't even if they gave it to me. I was like, I don't want to think about it. Yeah, like I'd just be sitting there on my stupid foam board, like all by myself, waiting for a wave, and I just like break out in cold sweat, like the Meg's gonna come up and eat me right now.
That's how I feel every time I go in the ocean. That feeling of
Dan does not like the ocean.
I'm a freshwater fish.
That's what he says all the time.
Yeah.
Did you have any trouble finding a teacher? Like, did you have any struggle because you were blind finding a coach? Was there anyone that like denied you or said like, I don't think I could do that?
Finding Josh was very, like the very first time I looked for a coach, a guy was like, I don't think our schedules work, but I know a guy, and the guy that he knew was Josh, and we started working together right away.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys, like, it's perfect.
Yeah, he's an amazing, the way he and I work together, like I couldn't be more happy and more comfortable and everything that we do in the water. So he catches what he's not just there to just coach me into waves. He catches waves as well. But I like when I work with other people, I try and tell them, I'm like, Josh and I are basically like on a bungee cord. Like he catches a wave, but I'm still attached to him in a way. Yeah. Like as soon as he's done with the wave, he flips around and he's paddling out and looking at where he needs to go, but he's got his eye on me. Yeah. To the point that like, Pete, you're too far out. You know, he can tell from 100 yards away.
You need that.
You need to come in or paddle. Like I'll hear paddle from like 80 yards out because he knows my paddle speed. He can read the wave when it's coming, and I'll catch waves. He doesn't need to be right next to me. I just need his eyes on me.
I guess I imagine it was like that, but that's actually better because you still are having the freedom of surfing and learning almost like on your own, but just with guidance. Just guiding you the right way.
And so
Josh told me you've gone on big waves too.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't know what I'm about to catch. So he'll send me, and so I work mostly with Josh and Brooks now, and the both of them have a lot of confidence in my ability, which is great. Like they believe in me, and because I've had so much experience dropping into like crazy late drop waves, the two of them are like, we can basically send you on anything, and there's a good shot you'll come out of it. So again, I just don't have a lot of experience getting great waves, but I get a lot of crazy waves.
Godzilla's got this.
Well, you're a strong swimmer. So.
Yeah, and so like I'll catch a wave, and maybe I'll get a warning like this one's pretty big, like not like like they're just kind of like, this is a bit like, prepare yourself, like they'll prepare me a little bit, and then like I'm in the air and I'm like dropping. You know, that's all happening in the in the speed that you drop into a skateboard. Like imagine you go to drop into a skateboard ramp and you think it's like 2 feet, but it's like 9.
I know that's happened.
We know that feeling.
Yeah. And so like I'm going down this wave and I'm like, I need to dig my rail and get the hell out of this free fall and like start going left or right.
Find something.
Or like just lean back on the tail so I don't dig the nose. And like, you know, I've gotten pretty good at it. Like I'll come out of most of those, and I come back, and Josh and Brooks like, that was sick, dude. Like we didn't tell you, but that was a big one.
Insane, dude. I'm seeing a real like I'm hearing this ongoing theme here that you, in your life, you've like really just put yourself out there and kind of just went for it. Like even calling that agent, going to all those meetings, and just having that guy call you back, La Fontaine, and like just going to the biggest agency, just going out there surfing, like all these things, and it's all paid off so much for you.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be afraid. I mean, a lot of that, I don't know. I feel like if you're just a regular person on a level playing ground, I always wonder, like, people have said to me, like, well, if you had regular vision, would you just be like a regular schmuck? I'm like, probably, I guess. Yeah. Like, you guys probably know what it's like. If we all, like, had the same vision and the same abilities and everything, then you just kind of like, what am I proving? Like we can all do the same, you know. I feel like when you go out and everybody automatically looks at you, like, you know, the first guy I spoke to about being a voiceover guy is like, no one's gonna want you. And like, you know, the first person I spoke to about surfing was like, it's gonna be a little hard if you can't see. Like you always get that, like, you can't do that thing, which automatically, I mean, a lot of people I've learned aren't wired the same way. A lot of people are like, yeah, you're right. Down, it's going to be hard. They do. They shut down. They like hide. But my first instinct is always to be like, screw you. And not just like, I'm going to do it. Like I feel like I mean, I've said it, and I'm old enough to admit it. Like, I do feel like my entire life is one big overcompensation after another.
Yeah,
like, I feel like if I drove a car, I'd drive a monster truck. Be like, well, it's bigger than yours. Like, but I feel like that's what society's done to people in our position. They look down at you so hard that just getting up to the level, like, just be like, oh, I make money as a voiceover actor. Like, that was never going to be enough for me. Like, I wanted to dominate. And then, same thing with surfing. Like, I don't just want to go out there and catch whitewash. I want to be like amazing. And I'm not amazing at all. Yeah. But I will go out there, like,
you have that
to
mindset.
What you were saying, like, I will take on the biggest wave and the biggest challenge and, try and do whatever anybody else can, because it's not just good enough to be like, I can be as good as you. Like, I want to stomp on
But it
those
seems
people.
like when you think you're getting better than you actually are, that's when you get kind of knocked down into reality of like where you're actually at, and it humbles you, and then you're able to work back up to where you thought you were, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm here.
Yeah, that's a tough mental block. Like, I'll never, like, I say I want to be amazing at surfing. Like, I won't be. Like, I get that. Like, I think I'll be good. I think at my best, I'll be a good surfer.
You are really good.
But I'll never be able to, I surfed with Taylor Knox. I've
Rob Machado made you a surfboard.
Made me 2 surfboards. Yes. And so I've spoken to him, and I surf with really good surfers.
That's a flex if I ever heard one.
I surf with competitive surfers that are all very good, and they all talk about, like, I get up on the wave and I look down the line, I know what the wave's going to do. So if you can look ahead, it's like you guys, you map out the bowl, right? You know, dogs just ran in here. Like, if you try, Super Dog, get out of here.
Get out.
Super Dog, go.
Dogs, get the dogs.
They're all in here.
Oh my god! Is the GoPro still up? No, we're good. All right.
It's all right. I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up. We got asked this the other day. It's actually, holy crap.
Super Dog, go away.
This is insanity.
Sorry, guys.
Super Dog, go away.
You're good, Ant. Keep going.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. We got asked this the other day on a podcast, and it was really interesting. If you got full sight tomorrow, like can see 2020, what would you do?
I would travel with Maggie because it's what she wants to do.
Travel.
Yeah, she would like to. Traveling for me, I give both of you guys a lot of credit for going out and just being out of your environment. Again, because I feel like when my vision crapped out finally, I was like so old. I'm not used to experiencing different environments.
Oh yeah, I feel that less motivation to get out of your comfort zone the older you get.
Yeah, like I'm happy going to the beaches that I go to and the staircases that I know how to get down and the neighborhood that I know how to walk.
Restaurants.
And it's almost the restaurants that I know. It's almost that feeling that I was talking about being in a lineup that gets crowded. Like I go from enjoying and being comfortable to now worrying, like
to having to think about everything you have to cover.
Yeah. And like even just like little, like going to streets I've never been on, I was like, where's the fire hydrant going to be? Where's the bench? I'm
okay,
walk
but
into?
Selfishly, what would you do? What would you want to do if you had your sight tomorrow? No one else is around you. You can do whatever you want.
I haven't thought about it that way. I feel like Maggie does so much for me, being the partner of someone.
Makes sense.
And I try and do, it's not like a take and take relationship. I try to do as much for her as I can. I try and provide a nice life and
you guys are a
everything
great
else.
relationship.
Yeah, but I do feel like she just wishes, and it's not just my eyesight either. It's the fact that my job is so demanding. However, if I didn't need to have this setup, we're in my studio and I'm kind of motioning to my whole studio. This setup
for those audio descriptions for the blind. Serious.
Here to help. This studio works for me with my inability to read script, where there are other voiceover people that can read off of an iPad or look at their iPhone and kind of record on the go much more easily than I can. I do feel like if I were able to see, I would like to be a little more mobile and explore the world, not just for her,
you would
but
get
for
up and
myself.
go, like you would just go explore.
Yeah. I mean,
see everything.
Yeah, my mother is Greek, and her parents both came from Greece, and my papu, my grandfather, was from the island of Rhodes.
Papu.
And I feel like I'd like to go. See, I don't just like. And Maggie's like, we should go to Greece someday, and I'm like, it just wouldn't. It'll be different, but not different to me. You know what I mean? I think you guys do know. Like
I have that feeling a lot about.
Yeah, it's like you could drop me on a desert in front of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and it's going to look the same to me as standing on a beach staring at the restaurant that we go
See,
to all
I'm
the
the
time.
complete opposite of you guys in that situation.
I don't know. It's just, it doesn't, because I'm a person who spent most of my life enjoying visual things and visual, like traveling to me when I was younger, like I'd go to one beach in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and then would go to another one, like, oh, this one's so much prettier, or like there's way more hot chicks on this one, like when I could see that kind of stuff.
Now you're like, a beach is a beach.
Yeah, beach is a bit like, even now, like my friends were like, oh God, going to the beach in San Diego must be awesome, all the chicks there. I'm like, I literally have no idea if there are any women on the beach. I have no idea. Like I just go to the beach to put on my wetsuit, go surf, and then I come home, because like what's the point of just sitting there? Again, I could be sitting on my couch and getting the same experience basically. And there's more beer available at my own house. So yeah, the ability to go out and experience more visual input and try different things, because nothing's really different to me right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Try to tap into those other senses. Is there anything you want to leave everyone, all the listeners with? Piece of advice or just whatever? Yeah,
I think, and this kind of, I kind of been rolling with it. It was something that came to me off the cuff when someone was talking to me. I feel like it's not just catchy, but it's relatable. In that whatever you've got going on in your life, I mean, even if you're just getting older, like if you're just trying to like stay active and you're now 30 and not 20, or if you're 40 and not 30, and this is something that I've learned as I've been getting older, the ability to be active is almost a given when you're younger. Like you're resilient and you can just go out there and do stuff. These days I do tons and tons and tons of body maintenance, just to keep myself able to do what I do. And so it works for that instance. It works for if you're losing your vision, if you're becoming overweight, if you're losing your hearing, like for anything in life. Life's going to change, things get harder, but you can't say to yourself, I can't do this anymore. What you need to say is you have to modify that sentence a little bit and say, I can't do this the way I used to anymore, which doesn't mean you can't do it. You just have to find a way, That's my Surf Channel slogan. You need to find a way to do it differently. So, whatever you think is the biggest hang up in your life, it's not going to stop you. You just need to find an alternate way to take it on. And that's what I try and tell everybody.
That's incredible.
Keep ripping the block off of life.
Yeah,
that's right.
Keep ripping that block off.
That was amazing, dude. Thank you, Pete.
Can't thank you enough. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah.
Drop all your stuff. And
unfortunately, you guys are like more
just promote.
Well, I was just going to say mine's like a pain in the butt because you have like ASF vision everywhere.
Across the
on
board,
TikTok, I'm at Pete Gustin. On Instagram, I'm at real Pete Gustin
because people would take me out. Yeah, he's not verified.
Yeah, he's not. The YouTube channel is Blind Surfer.
Make sure you subscribe.
It's a good one. Oh,
GoPro, start recording.
No plugs for me.
I think it's a battery. GoPro, start recording. It just died.
That's fine. Last thing I was going to say. And the website's PeteGustin.com.
We'll put that in.
Yeah. Awesome. Four bad eyes.
GoPro, start recording. It died.
The battery died.
GoPro, give me a back rub.
All right.
I don't know. We should finish the
4 bad eyes across the board. Please send in your questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. ASF Vision and Dan the Mancina.
Across the board. Yeah.
Pete, you got to take us out.
No, I don't have a script. I sucked without a script. This has been the greatest episode of 4 Bad Eyes.
Yes. That was amazing.
Keep pushing, and one love from 4 Bad Eyes.